first instead, due to a clash with another session. So Arindam will present first, and then we'll resume the planned agenda with the SANEPAR presentation coming second. Then the presentation from our colleagues based in Nicaragua will be third, and so on. So with apologies for the inconvenience, now without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Arindam Das and Ishwar Haritas for their presentation on pivoting from sustainable development goals to simple, doable goals. Arindam, the floor is yours. So you are trying to maybe share your presentation. Okay, so you cannot unmute. All right. Let me see. Can I do anything? I'm asking to unmute you.
Yes,
oh,
I got it. Okay. Thank you, Martin, for the opportunity to present early. Just for the information of others, I have a clash. There is another paper which has been written by me, and that's getting presented in track 2. So I have to get there too. So that's the reason I have requested for this change. So without further ado, I'll move on to my presentation, and the topic that we are going to talk about. Let me share my slides. Just one moment. Yeah, I hope you can see my slides. So the topic is pivoting from sustainable development goals to simple doable goals. Can social innovation help? So this has been written by me along with my co-author, Professor Ishwar Haritas, and both of us are at TFI Management Institute in India. And I'll be happy to share our findings and seek inputs from you that will be useful for us to continue our research. This is not a complete research. In fact, the social innovation part is something that we are still working on, but let me share our findings so far, and I'll be happy to take further insights from your perspective. So moving on, this is the statement Mr. Ban Ki-moon had made when he had announced SDGs in way back in 2015. So let me read it for you. Governments must take the lead in living up to their pledges. At the same time, I'm counting on the private sector to drive success. So, essentially, of course, UN SDGs are essentially government initiative in the first place, but private sectors play a very critical role for success of SDGs. Since 6 years since then, we have less than 4,000 days left. And do we see traction? Yes, we do. Nations are working on it. Organizations are working on it. Multinational enterprises are working on around SDGs. They are reporting progress on different parameters. However, the big question is that how achievable would be the ambitious goals that have been outlined in SDG 17 SDGs and with the associated aspirational targets. The main concern many of us as academics, observers, and stakeholders have are the frenzied and rather confused set of action from various stakeholders, including multinational enterprises, who could actually play a very big role, an important role in realizing the SDGs. So this paper is all about that. So essentially how businesses are working towards achieving or realizing the SDGs. So how are the businesses responding? So if you look at a PwC survey that was conducted in 2019, and they have looked at more than 1,000 companies, and 72% do mention SDGs in their reports and publications, but only 14% talk about specific SDG targets. And just about 1% talk about quantifiable measures of performance against the targets. So you essentially see that SDG if I may use this term, a lot of people will say that this is only empty talk. There are no results and actionable results associated with SDG talks that businesses are indulging in. So again, UNGC, United Nations Global Compact, did another survey, and Their observation is that SDGs, they are not originally designed to fit into the business, but businesses are trying to do something. They have their own ambitions. So, and it's kind of gray about, and how businesses are helping realizing the SDGs, considering the fact that we have about only 4,000 days left, okay, and we have 17 SDGs to cover. Okay. Now, some more points. So there is lack of science-led regulations. So regulations are coming up. Different countries are coming up with additional regulations apart from SDG recommendations and but not many of them are actually science-led. And the other thing is that business leaders also find that there is a complex set of initiatives that is clouding their sustainability actions. The primary the focus on SDGs. Of course, SDG is a good rallying point. All of us talk about SDG. You talk about SDG 12. Almost all manufacturing companies would have something to talk about. So, and SDGs are very good rallying points. But are we really making any difference? Are the businesses really making any difference? That has been the question. So if you look at the SDGs, a little detailed look at SDGs, you will see that there are certain issues with SDGs, and that's what I'm going to talk about primarily in this presentation. So for each of the SDGs from 1 to 17, we have a number of targets within the SDGs, and each of these targets may have multiple indicators. And say, for example, SDG 1, no poverty, has 7 targets defined by United Nations. And for these 7 targets, there were 13 indicators. Now, there are tier 1 indicators. There are just about 5 tier 1 indicators. And what are tier 1 indicators? Is mentioned at the bottom. So tier 1 indicators are essential and they are conceptually clear. They're internationally established methodology to evaluate them, and data are regularly available and all of that. So if you see, a lot of indicators that UN had defined or mentioned for whom there are no tier 1 indicators. Okay, so which are not tier 1 indicators, they're either tier 2 indicators or tier 3 indicators, meaning that these indicators will probably never see any realization, because if you can't even measure these indicators, how would you realize them at a global scale? So that's one of the challenges. So can we have these SDGs, while many of us talk about SDGs, but if you dig deep, you should also look at targets and indicators. I'll show you some of the targets and indicators and explain to you why these targets and indicators are many of them are almost very difficult to achieve. What is that we are trying to do here? We're trying to investigate the underlying challenges that are being faced by multinational enterprises in realization of SDGs, and how do they envision superior solutions? Whatever they are doing now, can they do anything better? Can they do anything differently? And that can be implemented at business level, so that their businesses become truly sustainable businesses and not SDG compliant businesses. Okay, so I have a couple of slides on background information and literature review. In the interest of time, I'll skip those, and of course these are mentioned in the paper, and the paper is available, so you can always go through them. So and if we are talking about methods, we have used a qualitative method with multiple criteria and multiple procedures, looking at data at different levels. So we will look at macro data, meso data, and micro data. So from level 1 data, we look at publications by United Nations and national governments. At the level 2, we look at some of this industry level consolidation and the business perspectives of SDG. And at level 3, we look at publications and reporting by individual multinational companies, and how in their publishing information. Then we try to triangulate them and come and synthesize the information. And based on this information, we try to come up with the gaps between what we want to achieve and what is happening today as of now in terms of SDG implementation or SDG realization as far as multinational businesses are concerned.
Arinda, it's been about 8 minutes. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. It's been about 8 minutes just for your information. Of course, you can take any time up to the 20, but of course, in the interest of discussion, it's better if you have a relatively short.
So I'll directly go into the results. So and if you look at this is published by United Nations. So out of 17 SDGs, this is an analysis that we have done based on publications from United Nations. So if you see that now total number of targets for each of these SDGs are mentioned, a number of targets with available tracking data on indicators, data that you can track. You will see that just over 36 out of 169 of them, we have tracking data. And now the global trend, and this is based on information that is published in UN documents, you will see that they are either on track, fair progress, no progress, or deterioration. Now you will see that not a single SDGs have targets which are on track. So either they are fair progress, there are just a few fair progress, and most of them are no progress or deterioration. And then if you look at level of development, closeness to the target, again, they are moderate, mostly moderate or low. But there are some where we have high level of development. That means a lot of activities are happening. And in terms of congruence across economies, again, across the world, do you see congruence in realization of those SDGs? Again, I have classified them as low, moderate, and high. You will see most of them are in the moderate and low levels. Now, I wanted to show you some of the SDG targets, and maybe I'll do it at a later point when you get into discussions. But if you have to summarize this information, you'll see that out of 169, just about 36 to 39 targets have trackable data. But even on this 39, there is insufficient momentum, low level of development, and significant disparity across geographies. Now, if you look at UNGC data, UNGC also conducts studies, and UNGC data publishes alignment or focus on SDGs by different businesses. So different industry sectors have prioritized SDGs and least prioritized SDGs. You will see certain SDGs are not prioritized by businesses, and one of them is probably SDG 14, life underwater. And of course, we use water is one of the important part of any majority of businesses, but somehow SDG 14 doesn't gain traction with most of the businesses across industry sectors. So we have few more industry sectors, and you can see which are the most prioritized SDGs and least prioritized SDGs. This again has been published by UNGC, United Nations Global Compact. Now, if you look at this, and if you have to summarize the slides that I've just shown, so SDG 8, 3, and 7 are the top priority, whereas 14 and 2 are probably the least priority among the businesses across industry sectors. And what is happening is that businesses are choosing SDGs that are most convenient for them, and they ignore the rest, being oblivious to the fact that there is a higher order interlinkages among SDGs. So they probably do not even realize that there are interlinkages. Now we come to the third level of analysis, that is at the company level. That is the micro level analysis. So what we have done is that based on UNGC's publication, we have identified 11 companies which are supposed to be exemplar companies in terms of SDG realization. So, and these are all multinational companies. And what we have done is that we have seen how from their published reports, either their GRI submission or some of their internal reports, or it could be their annual reports. From all this information, we try to find out how many initiatives they're running across different SDGs. And we can also find, what we have done is we have also classified which all SDGs are priority for them, which all SDGs are not priority for them. The darker shaded ones are the priority for them, and lighter shaded ones are not priority for them. And if it is white, it indicates that they have no action around those SDGs. So here again, you will see that some of the SDGs like SDG 10 is probably not being a focus or a point of attention for most of the companies that we have studied. So these are the company level studies we have done based on the company's publication. And again, you will see on the right-hand side that on the firm level sustainability targets, most of these companies, except one company, they have firm level sustainability targets, but they are not able to establish, majority of them are not able to establish any linkages between their sustainability targets and SDGs. So when a company says that I am working on SDG 3 or SDG 8, they are probably not able to kind of link with any of these SDG targets that UN has published. Okay, so they have their own internal targets, and they simply say that we are working on these SDG targets. And tracking, yes, majority of them, if they have published their sustainability targets, they also track these targets and publish performance on these targets periodically. Okay, so again, can we see that focus on SDG 8 and 12, limited focus on 2, 10, and 14, and they have their own sustainability targets, but they are not able to map their targets with UN's SDG targets, and they are periodically tracking their own targets. So this is the summary of the results that we have found. So global corporations, of course, they're rallying around SDGs, but the materiality becomes important. So they pick up SDGs that are related to their business, and they essentially focus on either avoid harm or do good, or it can be both, but primarily it is avoid harm. That's the philosophy they take when it comes to sustainability and SDG adoption. Okay, so finally, this is the summary of our findings. So MNE's actions on SDGs are not rooted in business sustainability. They are sporadic, and they provide limited confidence that we will be able to achieve the SDGs or realize SDGs by 2030. So when you synthesize the gap between expectation and performance, and we have done some analysis, I'll directly take you to the recommendations that we have in terms of how companies can adopt simple doable goals. Let me spend some time here, and then of course we can go back during the discussion. So what we are proposing is that instead of businesses starting with SDGs and trying to be compliant with SDGs, business can develop simple doable goals. And what are the simple doable goals? They can develop the simple doable goals of their sustainability from triple bottom lines, what they do as part of business activities, how these business activities impact their stakeholders, and from these business activities and looking at triple bottom line, they can develop simple doable goals, and they don't really need to start from SDGs per se. Of course, SDGs are going to stay. SDGs are going to stay with the United Nations and the governments and the subnational level policies. But businesses should start on the left-hand side with SDOGs. And once they develop these SDOGs, they should look at how do they transform their business model. How do they transform not just their own businesses, but their global value chain in terms of how do they create, capture, and deliver value from sustainable initiatives. And it can be different across geographies and industry sectors. Some businesses are operating in multiple industry sectors, and they operate in multiple geographies. The needs and requirements from sustainability compliance or SDG compliance are different. So MNEs should look at how do they transform their business model to be sustainable rather than compliance with SDGs and putting a few lines in the annual reports or GRI submissions. On the other hand, on the right-hand side, if you come, we have these SDGs, which are targets and indicators, and progress are being tracked by United Nations. And at a national level, also different countries are publishing their data in terms of their compliance with different SDG goals and targets. And this needs to continue. And what we can do is that we can also think of industry level and company level standards and benchmark based on these UN targets or UN SDG targets. We can also think of third-party verification and validation services, which are very few today as of now in terms of validation of claims on your sustainability. So it's mostly self-reporting than anything else. So, and once MNEs come up with transformed business model, MNEs can think of business sustainability alignment. And so what happens is that that is where you combine or you kind of associate SDGs with SDOGs. So what we are proposing is that SDGs need not go, but SDGs can be can be the focus of action for the UN and the national and subnational governments. However, SDOGs are the starting points, which is more about sustainable businesses. And through social innovation, multinationals can work with all their stakeholders, including partners in global value chain, to see how do they come up with a transformed business model for their businesses, which can be sustainable. And then it will be easier for them also to map onto their business model or their business activities with SDG compliance. So that is our proposition. So we are continuing to work on this transformation of business model through social innovation, where we are conducting certain surveys with multinationals about how do they engage with their value chain partner in the global value chain in terms of redefining their business models or activities in the business model, and how social innovation is helping them transforming their business. So that part of our study is still going on, but our idea is that essentially because SDGs are driven by United Nations and so sometimes businesses find it very difficult to implement or align, but at the same time, because of they being very critical rallying point, businesses don't want to lose attention from there. So they essentially kind of focus on those. But if we really need to do something that is meaningful, businesses should kind of more than looking at this botched up and ineffective attempt at times, which also lead to greenwashing. They can think of redeveloping or redoing their business model through business model innovation that leads to sustainable business models. And once they have that through certain kind of frameworks and standards for the industry as well as auditing bodies, they should be able to map or align their sustainable businesses with SDG requirements. So that's our proposition, and we advance our understanding of how MNEs are interpreting SDGs. But at some of the things we have not considered yet is how MNEs are looking at the behavioral dimensions, because if you look at some of our societies today, we have so much of focus on consumption, and so if consumption becomes the focus, a lot of this SDGs becomes very difficult to implement. So that can be future areas of research as well. So with this, I conclude my presentation. I guess I crossed 8-minute time, but maybe this was necessary to present my topic, and I'll stop here. And
thank you.
for questions.
Thank you, Arindam. So that was, well, very good as an introduction to the theme, especially of SDGs. The social innovation part, of course, is not at this moment the most developed part of the paper, but the SDGs part is very interesting and very served as a great introduction to the challenges of the SDGs. So unfortunately, we have only about 1 to max 2 minutes for discussion. So please, if you would like to ask a question or comment, please raise your hand, or perhaps you can also directly speak if you're comfortable with that. Posting comments in the chat is also possible, but yeah, perhaps just one observation, you know, quoting Paul Polman's previous talk in the plenary. He talked about the 2 most important SDGs being the climate SDG and then the inequalities SDG. And while the climate SDG is very, we can see in your paper that it's taken seriously in many industries, the inequalities SDG tends to be comparatively neglected and perhaps not much engaged with. And so what would be your kind of your comment on this?
Yeah, so, you know, like, I mean, this is something I had mentioned, that when we study this, I mean, companies' alignment with these SDGs, primarily they look at do no harm or do good, you know, like, and that's how materiality becomes important. A lot of times inequality does not really come into the fore as far as compliance is concerned for the businesses when they operate their run their businesses. So, you know, like, and if it is something about environmental damage, they are getting pulled up, businesses are getting pulled up. But, you know, like, if there are inequality issues, businesses believe that, you know, that's the government's problem, and that's not our problem. So, you know, like, and so it is materiality that is stopping businesses from looking into some of these SDGs. And that's why, you know, like, at the end of the day, we still believe it is government's responsibility to make SDGs happen. Businesses can only be a catalyst. But
thanks.
So that's my view.
That makes much sense. And I think another thing perhaps is, you know, aligning your business case with the question of inequalities might not be as, you know, it might not be that easy to come up with ideas of doing that. Whereas with climate, you can think of solutions perhaps that are business aligned in many cases. But anyway, thanks a lot for the presentation, Arindam. And let's move on then to the second presentation, which is the presentation about SANEPAR, Center for Sustainable Technologies, contributions to knowledge production and induction of innovations in the environmental sanitation sector. So the floor is yours. Juliana, is it, are you going to present? Or I don't know who is presenting on behalf of the, sorry, it's Cristina and Gustavo. I see the authors. So Chris, no, sorry, Juliana. So I checked the chat. Yeah, Cristina needs to be unmuted. So I'm asking to unmute you. I cannot unmute you, unfortunately. Okay, now.
Okay, thank you.
Cristina.
Good morning for us. I'm very happy to stay here in this conference. Thank you, Ms. Fougère, for this coordination. And I'm going to start screen my presentation for us. A minute, please. Can you see my presentation?
No, we cannot see it. We cannot see it now. No.
Okay. Oh my God. So, minutes here. Now?
Now, yes.
Okay.
Now we can see it.
Okay. Well, my presentation is about SANEPAR, SANEPAR Center for Sustainable Technologies. contributions to knowledge production and induction of innovations in the environmental sanitation sector. Me, it's here, Cristina, and my co-author is Gustavo Possetti. We have a question about innovation for sustainability and should guide the business of sanitation service providers, keeping the attention focused on environmental, social, and corporate governance. But how can we achieve this? With creation, development, and control of projects and experiments for new technologies. This is our answers about this, our questions about this. Well, how learning contributes to technology on SANEPAR is based on a simple idea. Learning for technological capacity in biogas projects carry out of different sources, intern and external. Yes, our analytical framework is SANEPAR sets is a center for excellence in sustainable technologies. Then some strategies of learning with technological niche can outputs in contribution to the environment sanitation sector. For example, in biogas sewage treatment plants and sustainable benefits. Okay, SANEPAR sets interact with Brazil-Germany Technical Cooperation Project to promote the energy of biogas, pro-biogas. And the focus of our work is SANEPAR and learning and technological niche in biogas project. Okay, this is SANEPAR. SANEPAR is a center of Center for Excellence in Sustainable Technologies. SETS can produce knowledge with technology improvement and adaptation, innovations, and sector trend up to date. Here you can look the sets. You have some.
Sorry, we are only seeing the first page of your first slide of your slideshow.
First slide.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know it. What happened of this? Please stay a minute, please. Now, can you see the second slide?
No, so I think maybe you need to stop sharing the screen and share it again, and hopefully it will work.
Okay, a minute, please. Stop share. Let's go for looking at another. Looking for another. Okay. Share the screen. Okay, the second slide, you can see.
Yeah, now we can see, and if you do the slideshow, it probably will work too. But I mean, this way it works anyway. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to this to the fourth slide about the asking of our research. It was about learning and the contributors to technological niche in SANEPAR is based on a simple idea. Learning for technological capacity in biogas projects carry out of different sources, internal and external. SANEPAR was interact with Brazil-Germany Technical Cooperation Project to promote the energy of biogas, pro-biogas in Curitiba, Paraná state in Brazil. Well, SANEPAR is a center of excellence in sustainable technologies and some strategy learning and technology niche to development the environmental sanitation sector. This is what focus of this work about SANEPAR and about learning and technological niche. Okay, this is SANEPAR is a center for excellence, and we have some knowledge production, technology improvement and adaptation, innovations and sector trends up to date. SANEPAR coordination in assessment of internal and external researches, training and capacitation program support. Okay, and then we have our theoretical background to think about technological niche. And we can understand technological niche as the creation, development, and control of projects and experiments for new technologies in protect space and provide learning platforms for new social networks. Then learning, you understand that learning plays a key role in niche development. And we have 2 strategies for learning. First, do a strategy about problem solving in projects and experiments through learning by doing, learning by using, and learning by interacting. Just learning by doing is about doing some activities in projects of biogas plants and others. Using and interacting about make this project, make activities. Production and use of scientific and technological knowledge means we have STE strategy. The relevance about research and development for learning. Here we think about the workforce with knowledge, scientific knowledge. Okay, well, the methods of our research is a case of study. We study the project of biogas, but especially the program Bom Paraná. The sample was by convenience. We have exploratory research with the key managers in SANEPAR with semi-structured interviews, and we consulted bibliographic and documentary research as scientific articles, technical reports, master's dissertations, and websites. And our analysis is about Bardin with the content analysis, with the research and the interviews that we have conducted in the SANEPAR. We have some illustrative actions and results of pro-biogas learning process. During our research, our field work, we have some evidence about the learning process. And for example, first, the preparation of technical guidelines on energy use of biogas from SPAs. For example, estações de tratamento. And then os results are technical guide on the energy of use of biogas, technical guide for the implementation of distributed power generation plants of electricity to biogas, and now. Also technical visits in Germany. Since this program, it was participate with the year the program, it was convenio with German Technical Cooperation. It's a cooperation with a German technical project, and there we have some technical visits in Germany, including visits to biogas energy plants for 8 employers of SANEPAR. Then another action, illustrative actions of results, is contact with institutions, companies, and professionals specialized in the areas of biogas, in energy efficiency, and others, in appropriate of new knowledge and partners. Okay, This was the Paraná Well-Tread Program project and works for improvement. Then the Paraná Bem Tratado program can rehabilitation, expansion, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, biogas recovery, and implementation in cities of Paraná State, Brazil. He started here the Paraná program with GIS cooperation. Then SANEPAR have international consultants during these years, and technical financial negotiations. Okay, here we design and build some projects. The projects that have as result some projects. It was, for example, the high-tech biodigestion plant installed next to Belém. Then studies on dry and thermal transformation of sewage jug, also part of the SANEPAR's portfolio. It was already taking the first steps to enable the implementation of full-scale solutions. In 2020, the projects were consolidated and work began in the thermal drying system of sewage sludge under construction at the Otuba in Curitiba, Paraná. Okay, concluding. Sets potential for incubator technological niche projects and contribute with innovative solutions to the environmental sector. Learning play a key role, biogas projects technological capacity, interaction with external source of learning, enhance efforts to innovative activities. Sets interact with pro-biogas knowledge production, new role for environmental sanitation sector, induction of innovations. Okay, then this is reference about our paper, some reference about this presentation, and thank you for presentation our work.
Thank you. Thank you, Cristina. So we have approximately 4 minutes for questions, comments, discussion. It appears that you need to ask for being unmuted each time. So maybe in the interest of you being able to ask your questions or make your comments, you can do that maybe in the chat directly, and I can read them out to Cristina. So any comments or questions? Yeah, so just generally about the presentations in this session, we have several presentations which are more about the SDG side, and then several presentations which are more about the innovation side. But we don't have necessarily the combination of the two. So I don't know. There is another presentation that will resonate, I think, with this one, where again we can see the roles of cross-sector and co-creation of innovation involving different stakeholders and so on. We have the one that's coming a bit later, which is about urban transformation and social resignification based on holistic urban riverbank revitalization, which is a bit more about kind of urban innovation per se. And here we have, of course, more technological type of innovation. But I don't know if there's any comments particularly on this, on the role of SANEPAR as an incubator and what we can learn from that. So maybe to Cristina then, where do you intend to take this paper? What would you like for the paper to end up in?
Okay, I share my screen. I share my PowerPoint, and this is the principle about my presentation: how learning contributes to technological niche, and some projects come. It was outcome about these inputs. Né? We have inputs about learning. The learning, some learnings inputs are these. We have some actions about learning and the results are in projects. then we can see some actions before, after my presentation, you can see. But here is learning is the principal input to technological niche. And technological niche is the space of creating new projects, experiments new technologies in protect space. Then the protect space can provide more learning platforms for new social networks. Then it seems to clarify about this simple idea. We have a center of excellence. We have a protect space for project development. We have some inputs in learning, and this learning nurtured technological niche, nurtured biogas project, and the output is the contribution to environment, biogas in sewage treatment plants and its sustainable benefits. Here you can see the technology for biogas for sludge processing. These are a light treatment plant, drying and combustion. This is one of the project of this initiative with the Paraná Well Treated Program. Paraná Well Treated Program. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so SANEPAR's role is to nurture, is to create these learning possibilities so that technological niches can be developed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, so that's a very good insight into what kind of how sustainable innovations can be enhanced through this type of center of excellence, such as SANEPAR.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cristina. We can now move on to the next. I have to switch to the PDF each time. To the next presentation, which is from Nicaragua, Felipe, Perez-Pineda, and Jilber, Urbina, Sustainability and Sustainable Development Goals in Business Models of Latin American Companies, an exploratory study. So let me check, Felipe, I'm asking to unmute you. I hope you will be unmuted. Now, there you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me here. The topic is sustainable and sustainable development in business model in Latin American companies, and the character of my research, our research, is exploratory. I want to ask you, I want to excuse myself because I think I'm going to turn off the image. The quality of the internet this morning is not the best one in my case.
No worries. Please feel free to remove the video.
Yeah. Let me see. I don't see my mic. Where is it? Well, I don't see. I cannot find. Oh yeah, here we are. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I think the quality of the audio and the presentation is going to be better now. This is, as I said, my name is Felipe Perez and my co-author is Mr. Jilber Urbina. And our aim is to understand how a sample of Latin American companies see sustainability and whether or not they have adopted sustainability as part of their strategies, as part of their business models. To conduct it, we use two analytical frameworks. The first one is the penta-dimensional corporate sustainability model, which has not been tested up to this point. I mean, has not been validated via empirical research. And this is a model developed by a team made up of professors from Instituto Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. And the second one is the Epstein and Bukovar corporate sustainability model. The study also aims to explore how involved top management is in engaging its stakeholders and how deep their connection with society is. We also wanted to assess how present SDGs are in the business model of the companies sample according to their executives' perceptions. Our findings highlight not only a considerable amount of lack of knowledge about the SDGs, but also how these relate to their current businesses. In spite of the fact that a good number of these companies say they have strategies involving sustainability, only a minority claim to be along the track of building the so-called business case with actual financial results reflected in the bottom line of the company. Regarding literature review, a fact that took our attention is that many Latin American companies are migrating from CSR, philanthropic and donation efforts towards sustainability, integrating it into their strategies and operations. A metric of this progress is the number of Latin American companies publishing reports that comply with the GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives, the most widely used standard for sustainability reporting. For example, by 2010, a total of 327 companies had published this type of report. 5 years later, the figure had more than doubled to 788. Over a quarter of these companies were Brazilian, making Brazil the center of green corporate practices in Latin America, although Colombia had the fastest growth rate in the region. Brazil and Colombia accounted for almost 50% of Latin American companies publishing their sustainability results. As for Central American firms, the number of companies complying with GRI was not available at the time of our research. We assume that the whole region must account for a very low percentage of total Latin American companies following this reporting standard. Regarding the methodology, a convenient sampling was carried out among executives of 170 companies from several Latin American countries. Almost 70% of those interviewed were males. 64% belonged to family-owned companies, and about 1/3 were from Latin American countries outside the Central American region. The questionnaire, which include face-to-face and online interviews, was divided into 3 different parts. The first and most extensive one attempt to evaluate company sustainability under the analytical framework of the pentadimensional model proposed by Portales and Garcia 2009. And this section included 100 questions, mainly multiple choice with very few open questions. The second 2 had 3 sections. The first one evaluated leadership quality in connection with society, based upon John Brown and his book Connect, 2016. And the second section was based on the corporate sustainability model from Epstein and Pujovac in 2014. The third section of the questionnaire focused on the degree of identification and alignment with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of results, the descriptive stats, mainly frequency tables, show a few interesting things. For example, when we ask for a definition of sustainability from the firm's perspective, in their own words, only about 78% of the executives gave an answer. Of these, about 42% did not know or gave a very poor definition of the concept. And only 20.4% provided what we can say was a good definition of what is sustainability at the firm level. Clearly, the companies in the sample are aware of the existence of the paradigm of sustainability, but this is not formally included in their long-term strategies, since we believe they are not fully understood and thus incorporated in their financial statements. The business case, as suggested by one of the corporate sustainability models, is very, we didn't find too much evidence that there were a good bulk of companies, pursuing this objective. And despite of the fact that around around a third of the companies say they incorporate social and environmental impacts in their financial statement. Most of this group, about 28%, the only thing they do is to take it into account when are budgeting their capex. 1/3 of those interviewed stated that their companies measure the financial results from the sustainability performance. Only 16% stated that their companies include social and environmental impacts when calculating the business ROI. Well, these are the SDGs. And this is the corporate sustainability model very quickly. These are the inputs, are the processes. The inputs are the internal and external context. And my apologies, we cannot see what is inside of these boxes. Then we have the processes, and we have the leadership, and we have the systems in place in the company. These are the products, and these are the results. The results are a product of the stakeholder reaction to all these sustainability actions, and the business case is when we reach this stage, in other words, when we reflect our products in the financial bottom line of the company. No, it's nothing. Okay. Very quickly, because I don't have too much time, talking about the pentadimensional analytical framework. This model have 5 dimensions. And we explored that. We explored those dimensions from our data sample, and we carried out a quantitative and qualitative analysis. The variables collecting information for each dimension. These are the dimensions, the 5 dimensions: competitiveness, accountability, relations, the impacts, and the global management. And this is what we got in our study. This is the optimum profile, and this was the observed profile. You see that the results are not the same. Look at the impact. Probably impact was the more weak of all these 5 dimensions. At the beginning, these dimensions we found that are not at the optimal level of prominence in business decisions. However, they are relevant on a 0-100 scale. They display a 70% relative importance, which indicates that in some way the business model of the companies in the sample incorporates sustainability to a greater or lesser degree according to the pentadimensional model. The individual, this table shows, for example, the percentage. This is the translation of the graph in the previous slide, and this is expressed as a percentage. And you see impacts. It was only 56.1% of the companies measuring, their global impacts of the sustainability actions or the social responsibility actions regarding their relevant stakeholders. This is our sample. Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, and other. There were mainly companies coming from South America. And this is the relative weight of dimension per region. And we didn't find any difference between Central America and the South American countries regarding the results we got. I mean, there is no evidence of a difference in the weight of each dimension has in Central American companies and those outside Central America. The section describing each region overlap almost perfectly, as you can see in this graph. And the table shows the value for each dimension on a per region basis. And it is showing the weights for individual dimension in each region, which are very similar, as we said. The p-value of a differentiation test for the mean confirms this. Indeed, there are significant differences between the mean of the scores for the dimensions between regions, since the value obtained was significant. let's see. I don't know how much time I have now. The second part of the research.
There is about 8 minutes or 7 minutes left in the slot. So,
oh my God,
including
I don't have too
discussions.
much time. The second part of the research was to determine if companies have a sustainability strategy central to their business strategy. How far these companies go when they embrace sustainability in their business models? Do they incorporate it as something aimed at better connecting with the strategic stakeholders and therefore publicly report actions that strengthen it as a sustainable company? And we did this using a logic model and a logistic probabilistic model was used to answer the research question. Does the company make explicit commitment to sustainability, or the company does not? This was a binary choice model, and this change ensures that the proxy variable is a variable that is going to be 1 if there exists a commitment towards sustainability, or 0 if this commitment don't exist. The results of this of the logic model, in this case we checked different models. The dependent variables was the commitment to the environment, and we got, in this case, 3 logistic regulations models which were really good. We found that the intercept, in this case, well, this is, this is the dependent variable is commitment to the environment. These are our independent variables. We have sales and sales square because we transformed this variable. It's not a linear relationship at the end. We discovered that looking at the residuals. We have the age of the company, the number of employees, they claim that they contribute to society, and the constant, and then we check the marginal effects of this. And we found, for example, that these 3 variables had significant p-values. Goal 5, annual sales square, and contribution to society. And this the positive sign of the coefficients indicate that although sales increase in a steady way, there will be a point where the probability of being sustainable will no longer be reduced. That is, the effect of sales on sustainability is nonlinear. At some point, it reaches a minimum and stops decreasing, rather than starting to grow. This is the typical behavior of a parabola or quadratic function. In business terms, this result can be understood as follows. Initially, the goal of the small company is to grow and become financially self-sustaining. Therefore, the interest is not on sustainability, as defined in the norm ISO 26000. However, once financial maturity is reached, companies tend to focus more on business sustainability and become more interested in their environment, both internal and external, which is inferred from the sign of the parameters in the logistic regression. Aligned with this logic, the age variable was introduced with no transformation, that is linear, and then we did this squared. However, the results suggest that regardless of the company maturity measured by company age, this variable has no effect at all on the probability of being sustainable. In other words, there are factors other than age really leading Latin American companies in the sample to embrace sustainability. Along the same lines, it was assessed whether the size of the company measured by the number of employees impacted sustainability. We could have assumed at the beginning that the larger is the company, measuring number of employees, the higher the propensity to incorporate sustainability into their business model. However, the results in the table 6 suggest that this variable does not impact that decision. Keep in mind that the median number of employees in the companies were 188. They were medium-sized and big companies. On the other hand, and this is surprising, the size of a company, this time measured by sales, does impact sustainability, even if the size of the company measured by the number of employees does not. Finally, the variable asking, do you think companies making a clear contribution to society has a positive impact as expected on the company's probability to embrace sustainability? To deal with the mistake company age at the time of the survey, because some people got confused here and they believe there were the level of antiquity of them working in the company, but we were able to correct this because we had, we calculate this because we have the foundation dates and the day the questionnaire was applied. So this was not a big deal at the end. And in terms of, let me skip this. I don't have too much time. In terms of conclusions, in relation of the pentadimensional model, we believe when we measure, the impacts on a 0-100 scale, they have an average relative importance of 70%. This indicates that the companies in the sample have a considerable knowledge of the importance of declaring themselves sustainable. And these results complement the findings in the second part of the research. The central point of the research was to find to what extent Latin American companies incorporated sustainability into their strategies and business models. According to data from the sample, 71% of the companies with defined strategies thought they were making a clear contribution to society. Defining the strategies explicitly also increasing the probability of being sustainable by 25.3%. We found that when we calculated the marginal effects in the logistic model. And this can be explained not so much by the age of the company, but by the dynamism of the sales of the company. This in turn might suggest that companies competing in larger, higher growth market or attractive market niches might be the most likely to incorporate sustainability into their business models. And this may be due to the fact that they are more focused on domestic markets, big companies, with less sophisticated consumers where sustainability is not yet a driver of competitiveness. However, the results seem to suggest that once a level of sustainable growth in terms of sale volumes has been reached, companies began to take an interest in sustainability as a central part of their competitive strategies. And we capture this, transforming this variable and using a quadratic transformation. Age of the company is not a key factor, as we said, and company size measured by number of employees was not a significant factor for sustainability in companies. This could mean that large companies focused on internal markets do not have a strong motivation to move towards sustainability, which could happen to companies selling in international markets with better informed stakeholders. And let's see, okay, we'll talk about this. Yes. Maybe I am just finishing.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Martin, if my time is finished, I will stop here. But
you can do 1 more minute. It's fine.
Okay, thank you so much. Very kind of you. And regarding the sustainability of the SDGs, I think maybe, in spite of that, most of the company claim they have sustainable policies in their business models. We believe that they don't have a clear understanding of what sustainability is at the firm level. I mean, we are talking about sustainability, not corporate social responsibility, and a very few number of the companies in our sample are moving toward the business case. I mean, they are incorporating the results of the sustainability actions in the financial bottom line. And the last part, we were able to identify 4 types of companies. The first one is those that have embraced sustainability as part of their business models and that have taken or are taking steps to build the business case. These report the results in the form of GRI. The second is companies that carry out sustainability actions based on their strategies, but only reaching up to products. I mean, these are companies that only report actions, sustainability actions like, you know, book donations, like planting trees, things like that. That the third group consisting of companies that without explicitly incorporating sustainability in their decisions, identified in their business model some sort of compliance with some sustainable development goals. We believe that the most of the sample of the companies in our samples are in the third group. And the fourth group are composed of companies that do not incorporate sustainability into their business models and are rather oriented to compliance and to strengthen their image as good corporate citizens. Regarding the limitation of our study, we believe that we worked with a relatively small sample, a small convenient sample. However, this exploratory study might propose new avenues of research on sustainability and its incorporation into the operational and strategic decision in Latin American companies. Other research questions could be framed based upon these exploratory results. As are companies embracing sustainability more successful than those companies that don't do that? In which type of industries are these companies competing? What factors in the local business environment favor the emergence of sustainable companies? These are just a few questions that we believe could be explored in the future research around this important topic. Well, we end up with these 4 groups using factorial analysis. You know, we use PCA, exploratory factor analysis, and confirmatory factor analysis. And this is it. And thank you so much for your indulgence with the time. I know I took more time than you.
Thank you, Felipe. A very intricate paper and lots of things going on in there, and very interesting musings around, well, you know, causal relationships between in what you find and so on. So lots of avenues for future research, certainly, and maybe room for several papers actually in your paper. If there are comments to Felipe, I suggest you put them in the chat, and we will move on to the next presentation because we're out of time for this slot. So let's move on to the next presentation, which is on urban transformation and social resignification based on holistic urban riverbank revitalization, a case study in Curitiba, Brazil. So now I need to go back to Zoom and check who is it Elaine who will present, or who will present on this paper? Could you type in the chat the person who will present? Could they please type in the chat so I ask to unmute them?
Sorry, you said that the urban transformation?
Yeah.
So that is Aliny.
Okay, Aliny. So
next.
I'm asking to unmute Aliny. Okay. Well, maybe if Aliny is not with us now, it appears she might not be with us at this point. So Elaine, would you be ready to present your paper at this point?
Okay.
All right. So Elaine will present her paper, which is entitled Corporate Social Responsibility Aligned with Business Case GRPcom Institute. And it's written together with Carlos Alberto Jose Sampaio and Raquel Ponque.
Okay, let's share my slide. So you can see you see my slides? Okay. So good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be here to talk about my research. Sorry. my study was about corporate social responsibility, aligned with the purpose and the core business company who sponsors social projects. I started this study because I believe that we need to think about the company's capacity to attend social and environment demands on the communities where they operate. Then it's very important to instigate the company's protagonism in the construction of a better society. So my paper was to identify how private social investments aligned to the corporate's purpose can simultaneously benefit society through the institute or foundations projects sponsored by the company, and also adds strategic value to the business itself. When we look at the theoretical background, one of the most important author, Carroll, defined CSR like the set of responsibilities distributed from 4 expectations, which are economic, legal, ethical, and discretionary. And the PSI falls under this discretionary responsibility. It's important to say that there are some authors who believes that the only responsibility of the company is the economic results, but the research showed that the social environment issues positively impact the perceived value of the brand. And when we talk about PSI, in the past, companies worked with philanthropy and then with assistantialism. Nowadays, it has been changing for PSI, and we can say that PSI is the evolution of traditional philanthropy, acting on the cause of social problems and not on the effects. The most common definition about PSI is the voluntary and strategic allocation of private resource in public benefits. So it's very important that point, the public interest. When we look at the evolution about PSI in Brazil and the United States, we can see that it's around 1% of the company's gross profit. And it's interesting to see that in some years, the PSI in Brazil was bigger than the United States. That is a country with a philanthropy culture consolidate. And about the business alignment, some authors believe that the alignment between PSI and business mischaracterizes the investment as social, but fortunately it's not, it's the minority. The prevailing thinking is that the alignment generates tangible benefits for all and promotes business sustainability. Falcon, the methods we use an empirical research of qualitative descriptive nature based on the case study of GRPCOM Institute. For this, we made a systematic literature review and a field research based on a qualitative data interviews form. And then we analyzed the results about different perspectives by theory of triple bottom line. Okay. So let's talk about the case study, GRPCON Institute. GRPCON is a Brazilian communication group. It's composed of newspapers, radios, and television stations, and they sponsors GRPCON Institute. Was founded in 2001 and coordinates a lot of social projects. Here there is some projects developed by GRPCON Institute. It is a company committed with SDG, and many of them projects are awarded. And when we look at the results, considering the perspectives by theory of triple bottom line, we highlight at the social function, we see that 92% of employees say that they are proud of the activities developed by the company. At the environmental function, we perceive that they support ENG with projects related to environment issues. And to the economic function, we find that PSI in the last 4 years was higher than the national and the US average. And additionally, the biggest benefit identified was the image gain that impacts on the engagement and in the audience, and consequently in business results. So the conclusion is that the alignment between CSR and the business generates shared strategic value for both. For the company perspective, we can see image gain and employee engagement are the main benefits. For the institute, the easy access to business managers and the defense of the funds. And it's we have to say that with the research was not we can't measure the impact of social responsibility actions in the financial results. Okay, so to finish, I would like to emphasize that organizations driven by a clear purpose generate greater engagement and boost the company's social results, because engagement is a consequence of satisfaction and sense of belonging, which brings a relationship of pride on the part of those who aligned themselves with the purpose of the causes founded by the organizations. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Elaine. So we have about 4 minutes for discussion. And so please share your comments or questions in the chat. And I will read them aloud. So the GRPCOM, so there is just a clarifying question perhaps. So GRPCOM is also the name of the company, but there is a separate institute. Is that the institute is a third sector organization and the company is a business organization?
It's a business organization. It's a Paranaense communication group.
Yeah, for Paraná, for the state of Paraná.
The state of Paraná. Yeah. It's the bigger communication company in the state.
Okay. Yeah.
The biggest. Sorry, the biggest.
Yes, I can see Alessandra has a question or has raised her hand. So Alessandra, please feel free to ask.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Priscilla, for your paper presentation. I would like just to put a question for you. I know it was part of your research, and I am a little bit concerned about a topic that is concerning to my paper for tomorrow. That's why I'm taking the advantage of the questions, which involves ESG and sustainable tax systems. So as you were saying about PSI and the commitment of the companies with their purposes, do you think, or have you seen if any possible engagement of the companies would increase if there would be any kind of tax incentives towards that? I know that GRPCom Institute is probably a not-for-profit and doesn't have much of a tax burden. That's why I'm asking if this was part of your research, or what are your feelings around that? Would this increase if there would be any tax special treatment for companies that are pursuing their sustainable purposes?
Sorry, I don't know if I understand, but you are asking if there is some benefit tax, that's it?
If there were, because there are some, but if there would be, I don't know if it was part of your research to see if there would be more engagement on behalf of companies into moving towards their purposes, if there would be more tax incentives than we already have.
Ah, okay, yeah, it's not, I didn't look specifically to this, but I think yes. I think the companies and the organizations don't aproveitam, I don't know how can I say, they don't
Approve, maybe?
all of the benefits that there is, because in the actual nowadays we have tax benefits, and it's about 2% of the results of the company, and we look that the company's investment 1%. So we don't use all the benefits today. So I don't know if we have more benefits, the companies were engagement, but I think it's a good point to stimulate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are existing, if I understand correctly, there are existing tax incentives that are 2%.
Yes.
And only 1% is used for these kinds of foundations or institutes. Okay, interesting. Yeah, thanks, Priscilla, for this interesting. I don't know if it's Elaine or Priscilla, I should call you, but
both.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we now are ready for the final presentation of the session, and Aliny is back with us. She managed to get back in. So Aliny, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everyone. You are already listening to me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to present this paper that we call Urban Transformation and Social Resignification based on Holistic Urban Riverbank Revitalization. It's a study of case in Curitiba. I also want to present my colleagues who were working together on this project: Gustavo Possetti, José Tissá, Ronald Gervasoni, Mauricio Scher, and Julio Gonchorowski. So before motivation and objectives, as an introduction to this presentation, I want to say that
In the age of innovation and sustainable development, classic science and engineering practice should be related not only to technical results, but also promoting social and environmental transformation. And this presentation reports a kind of symbolic but relevant experience for us to promoting urban, environmental, and social improvements through action about an holistic urban riverbank revitalization that was made here in a strategic and central area in the city of Curitiba. So SANEPAR, to get the scenario and the motivation, SANEPAR operates water and wastewater systems in Paraná state, or sewage, not wastewater complete, while urban drainage systems are from municipality responsibility. So SANEPAR established a scope of social and environmental actions together with the city of Curitiba. And SANEPAR would provide in this context environmental and social gains, but different from those arising from main activities, which means planning and executing actions different from those directly related to water and sewage treatment plants and systems. So, here. So consider that in Brazil, the municipalities are in general unable, they don't look at this kind of to use the landscapes and urban planning potential offered by streams and rivers in the downtown or, in the urban space. Considering also there's a few public area designed for recreation and environmental awareness, such as linear parks, for example, and urban rivers and streams are often hidden and unnoticed by people, and even turned into marginalized areas. So taking all this scenario, there are some possible urban, social, and environmental possible impacts obtained by actions related to marginalized bank rivers improvement. So the proposal for social and environmental compensation reported in this paper and in this presentation consists of a kind of experiment, not so academical study or research. It's more about an experiment to bring a new context and landscape in these aspects. So to develop projects like this, even if it's in a small scale and experimental demonstrative character, it was really necessary to establish a strong partnership with the municipality, in this case of Curitiba city, mainly due to the need to act in a public, I would say area, but maybe it's better to say arena, because of all the public and public context, precisely so that society could be realized and enjoy, in fact, the benefits obtained from the interventions performed. So the river chosen by this project was Jilber River, as it's an important tributary of Belém River that is very emblematic here in the city. So here you can see the green area is about Belém River drainage area, and Jilber River is in this red area. And here is all the Curitiba map city, and then here I can show you how big is the area that we are talking about. And this is specific exactly the area that we made the project. And before showing you some results as a theoretical background, I just want to emphasize this text that I read for you, that using urban rivers as a part of revitalization strategy should include at least these three factors. First, the transformative new vision for rivers landscape that must be created. Second, main actors that must be dedicated to these strategies for the long term, that must promote professional networks across and multiple scales of government and business, because there's not so only for government, but together with another companies, it can increase and turn it much better. And at least creative financial support from multiple scales of government that is necessary to move urban revitalization forward. So let me say that, of course, also to do this kind of project, we had to consider like different principles of different engineering specialties like environmental, sanitary, civil, geotechnical, hydrological, forestry, infrastructure, and also urbanism, because we're talking about cities improvement. But then, as contributions and results, I really could stay here much more than 8 minutes explaining all the work that is behind this implementation and activities that we made, but I had to really go straight to some graphics and images that could show exactly what we have done there so far. So here in the yellow area, we have the main area that we work in, and the other areas are federal lands that we could not act. So in the beginning, we were supposed to have a bigger project, but in this case, we could not do that because of this federal area that was not able to. And then this will have some topography surveys and planiometric and bathymetric characterization. Also, we do some water quality evaluation and water flow studies also. We also could see twice some fluid events caused by rains. It's about once or twice a year that it happens, so it's common to have this situation in that place. And then I will show you some before and after contributions and results. We did some dragging and revitalization at the riverbanks. We planting grass on the riverbanks, grass and also another vegetation, like we clean up and planting native species. We take off exotic species and plant native species. Almost 100 of them. Some of them are taller, but at least minimum 1.5 meters taller, the seedlings. We also do some recuperation for pedestrian wood overpass. We clean up all the area, include the river and the banks and the whole area that we could act in. We do some new signs around, like to identify the river, and also traffic signs. And we also do some new paved pedestrian and cycling path to valorize the area. And finally, we decided to do this graffiti street art. We gave all the ideas of draw and so to a local artist, and maybe now it's possible to use it for sensibilization actions, for environmental sensibilization, even for people who pass by this area, or even to invite teachers and students to discuss each element that is drawn in these walls, to experience this open place that have even urban and natural elements to talk about. So here we have some references, and at least I would like to say, to finish my presentation, like last message, to let's consider urban rivers as part of strategy to promote urban revitalization and make cities smarter. So there's some acknowledgements for SANEPAR and the city of Curitiba, and here we also have my contact and Gustavo's also. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Aliny. Yes, so if there are questions, comments, please feel free to either raise your hand or post your question in the chat. So Cristina, yes, you have a question. Hope you can be unmuted. Yes, you are unmuted.
Okay. I think it was very interesting, the presentation of Aliny about SANEPAR. Both of us present the case about the same firm, SANEPAR, but the projects are some difference. Okay, my research is about a biogas project, and I have the co-author with Gustavo Possetti, the same of Aliny. But it's a very interesting to say that SANEPAR have twice some perspectives about innovation and sustainability projects. The river, it's a project that's an example of about the social engagement of SANEPAR. And the biogas project, it's another example of a project and involvement with the innovation in technology and the cooperation with and others partnerships and for development, innovation and technology in the city of Curitiba and the state of Paraná. Okay, it's very interesting to think about this. The magnitude, I don't know if this is the word, but the magnitude and amplitude about SANEPAR of these projects of innovations and sustainability and social environment.
Yeah, the scope of SANEPAR, or the breadth of their activities in innovation for sustainability. Yeah.
Yes.
Very diverse. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Cristina, for the comment. Aliny, any response?
Marta, as Cristina said, and as I said before, SANEPAR is more related to water and wastewater systems, and this is really an innovation, a kind of innovation project that open a little bit more our minds to connect the other elements that are sometimes directly involved and sometimes not so directly, but it's all about the same subject, about the main subject, the impact that we could have in the river and also in urban systems. So it's a very small experience that we are presenting here, but we have also some goals to reach in the next days, months, and years about this project, also to turn it really functional, to maintain the area. And so we're still doing this project. This is the very first beginning of this. And I believe that these connections are very important to make cities smarter, So we have to do more of this, even if it's not our business, you know, water and wastewater. We are talking about rivers and much more bigger theme, you know.
Yes, thanks for these precisions. Okay, yes, the next activities will start in 13 minutes. We still have a few minutes, maybe we can have about 10-minute break before the next session. So you have the links there in the chat for the next session. But perhaps one question then to Aliny. I don't see any other hands raised, but one question about what next? I mean, you said that there will still be work around this particular experiment, but are there any, do you want to also serve as an inspiration to other places in Brazil or to other places in Curitiba with this project? I mean, is there any idea of scaling up, which we often use in relation to innovation? But this is, of course, a different kind of innovation, perhaps. So, what is the vision for where it goes next, where this project goes next, in a sense?
Yeah, we must do some cooperation with the city of Curitiba to make it better and to can do another project like this. And I think this will be an example, like a model to have replicate, can I say, in other cities also. Once it has successful in this action, and we can explain and how can I say, we can touch, you know, other kind of person, not only technical person, not only the ones who were involved at SANEPAR or the municipality, but also for society. Then I think it's successful, and then we can do much more of this kind of projects in the whole state, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that sounds really good, and that these types of local projects can serve as inspiration for other places, yeah, and for urban revitalization elsewhere as well. So I guess that closes this this session. So we had well, various at least 2 papers engaging with the SDGs and sustainability integration in companies, and then we had papers that were more about, you could say, social and environmental innovation in different perspectives. And then there was a paper as well about the alignment between social and environmental and business objectives in a company. So we had quite a breadth of topics. We had resonances between papers either way, especially kind of the 2 SDG papers and the two Curitiba innovation papers, you could say. And of course, we had the context of Curitiba also with the paper around the media company. I don't know if there's any final comments. So if not, then I suggest we have a 10-minute break before we join the next sessions. It was a pleasure to have you in this session. Well, see you in the other sessions then.
Okay, thank you so much, Martin, and thank you everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care, bye.